Good afternoon. I'm here representing a police troop in the 50th Rifle Division. That's the unit we chose to reenact. They were a standard Soviet rifle division. They were never promoted to guard status, even though they had some other honors, but we picked that unit because they stayed standard bone regular infantry throughout the entire war. So if you look at the table here, we have some items that could have been used by a Red Army infantryman during World War II. You'll notice I'm not saying a Russian soldier during World War II. And it's because the Soviet Union was a diverse place. In the Red Army, that's the Soviet military, it was a multi-ethnic state, and every minority was represented, while there may have been a large number of Russians, there were Ukrainians, Tatars, Belarusians, Uzbeks, even Koreans served in the Red Army. So to say it's just a Russian army is a bit of a misnomer and a misconception. But going back to the table here, we have all kinds of things that would have made a soldier's life all kinds of degrees easier. Of course, one of the great triumphs of the Soviet system is the pretty much deletion or the elimination of adult illiteracy. And as a result, in the 1930s before the war, we see a huge renaissance of letter writing. People who have their letters for the first time begin to write to each other, and they were done in these little shaped like this. It looks like the little footballs that middle schoolers like to kick at each other. But this was how you would send a letter. They didn't use envelopes. It's a waste of paper. And soldiers sent mail for free, so you folded this up, you would drop it off at the post office that was attached to every division, and you would get your mail eventually. In addition to that, we also have a renaissance of literature as well. So this is an example of a Soviet book from the 1930s. This roughly translates to partisan stories. This is just something that's action, adventure stories that a soldier could read during their downtime, or if they were feeling maybe a little more desperate, could be made into cigarettes by ripping the pages out and rolling a cigarette that way. Usually, though, they would use newspapers for things like that. Pretty much every Army-level organization, the Red Army, had their own newspaper. So there are several ones. We're familiar with Pravda. That was actually a civilian publication, of course read by soldiers, but you see such patriotic names as Za Rodinu, which means for the motherland. You also see Red Arrow, Red Star. All of these newspapers have different names. Similar content, though: propaganda stories, feel-good stories, stories of production quotas being met. All good things to give morale to the troops at the front line. One thing I like to always say for these is that the Red Army, despite its reputation as a dirty army, despite what Western historians have called it, the Red Army was very hygienic. They were expected to clean themselves and wash themselves every day. They were issued soap powder and shaving cream. You'd mix it up with this and apply it to your face, and you'd shave. You were expected to shave every day. You would get up in the morning, you would shave your face, and then go about your day. Well, of course, during the war, does that happen? Probably not. I'm sporting about a day's growth here myself. Didn't have time for it. And of course, my mustache, which was in vogue. Another nod to cleanliness was in every soldier's uniform. It's a collar liner. So in every soldier's collar would be a piece of white fabric. You can see it here. And this was designed to prevent boils, pimples, and things from developing on the collar. Every morning, you get up and shave, and you'd rip out your collar liner and replace it with a fresh one, or wash it and put it back in. Now, did that happen every day? Probably not. Mine has seen better days for sure. I usually take them out and wash it at the end of the reenacting season, which we're rapidly approaching, which is good because it's very warm out here today. I'm sweating. So that's some more of the personal items. Of course, everybody loves the firearms, right? This is the bread and butter of a soldier's life. Of course, we have the SVT on top here. Excellent design from the Soviet Union. Unfortunately, only about 1 million were made. In a time when they were making these, the Red Army was about 5 million men. Never enough. However, examples of this rifle would be captured by the Germans and basically carbon copied into their Gewehr 43 semi-automatic rifle, which, for all their singing about how the Soviet people were inferior or even subhuman, they had no qualms about stealing their weapon designs. And of course, we have the famous Hepesha 41 PPSH, a submachine gun that everybody thinks is the standard for the Red Army. Unfortunately, maybe, or maybe fortunately, these would have been issued, even though there were many millions made, would have been made issued to NCOs, officers, or small shock companies. Groups of about 100 men would be given a submachine gun and sent to spread terror in a city like Stalingrad or Berlin or Breslau or what have you. Of course, though, when you're fighting on the Eastern Front, it's not all cities. It's wide, open steppes across Ukraine, across Poland, into Germany. And as a result, the Mosin Nagant rifle here on the bottom would have been the standard rifle. It would have been what 95% of Soviet troops would have had, and again, contrary to popular belief, Soviet soldiers would have had these. We've all seen that atrocious movie, Enemy at the Gates, where the movie opens up with political commissar giving, which whenever would have been done, political commissars were more responsible for morale and education than shooting troops in the back who were treated.
In terms of an industrial war, having a semi-auto versus a bolt
But of course, the myth is that, you know, you have two rifles and you give you have two men, one man gets a rifle, the other one gets a packet of ammunition.
Hundreds of thousands of
complete bunk. The Soviets, while certainly more accepting of casualties in Western armies, were not so callous as to send unarmed men, 50% of their men unarmed into battle. It doesn't accomplish anything except a pile of corpses. So the Mosin here would have been the mainstay, and what 95% of Soviet troops would have had.